Sports Pro. The place you want to be. The hottest new that talks about what high school athletes to watch, college players that are under the radar, semi-pro athletes that are getting a look from the pros, international players killing it overseas. We're talking the next American Sports Pro. Hey, do you have what it takes? Go to www.nextamericansportspro.com and register today. Exposure is the name of the game. If you can't be found, you can't be seen. Get your profile online and get discovered today at www.nextamericansportspro.com. We're talking the next American Sports Pro. Hey, do you have what it takes? Go to www.nextamericansportspro.com and register today at www.nextamericansportspro.com.
All right. All right.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Yard Brawl podcast, your one-stop shop for inside information on the Mac. I'm Todd Worley, along with Memphis Spence. Guys, this is shaping up to be one of the most exciting Mac races in recent history. You consider the talent and the experience of the teams at the top of this conference. This thing is wide open. You've got heavyweights that are going to be taking each other on week after week, winning, and then on top of that, winning Power 4 conference battles. This is an amazing time in the Mac right now. We are the place where you can turn to for inside information from the media that covers these teams, and also an in-depth analysis of the key matchups in this conference each week. The headline grabber from this past week was obvious. Toledo blowing out Mississippi State on the road, 41-17. If you've been with us for a while now, you know in our very first show in the season preview, Toledo beat writer Kyle Rowland predicted in that episode that Toledo would win at Mississippi State. Then he came on this past week and predicted that same thing again. So for viewers of our show, Toledo winning that game should not have come as too much of a surprise. Then if you look at last week's Miami-Cincinnati matchup, the Victory Bell game, and you listened to our preview of the game last week, we took a deep dive into that game, and just about everything we expected to happen in that game actually did happen in terms of the way Cincinnati won, why they won, Cincinnati's defense playing well in the red zone against Miami, Cincinnati having trouble rushing the passer, Miami, just different factors that we predicted would happen did actually happen. And then in our Yard Brawl overtime segment that's for subscribers only in last week's show, there were 4 bets that I said that I liked, and 3 of them hit. So if you're into that, we are having fun here. We're just getting started now. Today, we've got a great show for you on deck. We sat down with Kyle Rowland, the beat writer for the Toledo Rockets. We discussed the Rockets' big win at Mississippi State and what's next for them. We took a deep dive into the Buffalo and Northern Illinois matchup as well. Huge conference opener this weekend to come. First up, though, we've got a quick update from Bowling Green and Western Michigan.
Let's get it.
The Miami Redhawks are coming off a 27-16 loss against UC at Yeager Stadium on Saturday, and they're going to head on over to South Bend to play Notre Dame in a big-time contest. This will wrap up 3 straight games for Miami that are playing FBS programs. After this loss against UC, Coach Martin said that, hey, his team's playing with a lot of effort. He's happy with that. However, there are some things throughout the entire course of the game for UC and against Northwestern in the first contest that kind of shows a little concern, and that's the running game. They're going to have to see more complementary running game to mix in with the passing game so that Brett Gabbard can sort of continue to get back on track. But in terms of healthiness, the Redhawks are great. Going into South Bend on Saturday, they're going to have a running game to compete with Notre Dame. Notre Dame is ranked number 17 in the nation, so it's going to be a tough contest for Miami to kind of hang in there with them. But hey, it's possible. We saw it happen with Northern Illinois. So coming into this weekend against Notre Dame, look for Miami to stay conservative, but also try and figure out some more things to compete with a top-notch program.
Todd, this is Pat Eakin with the Bowling Green Sentinel Tribune. Bowling Green goes into College Station this week after a bye week and taking on Penn State 2 weeks ago. They'll be playing in one of the largest stadiums in the country once again. And after an impressive showing at Penn State, nearly taking down the Nittany Lions, leading almost 3 quarters, I think they're ready for Texas A&M, ranked 25 in the country, just coming off a win of Florida. BG does get back. Running back Terrion Stewart. He missed the Penn State game. He leads one of the leaders in the country in breaking tackles. And I think the Falcons are hyped and they're ready. Coach Scott Leffler said they had a good week of practice. And we'll see if the BGSU can be the next MAC team to pull off the major upset. So it's going to be exciting. I do think BG has their work cut out for him up against Coach Mike Elko, who coached at BG 5 years, was a defensive coordinator. But we'll see how the Falcons can do. I think I got to predict an A&M win. But you never know about these MAC schools, especially the way things have been going lately.
Western Michigan football got in the victory column for the first time in the 2024 season on Saturday, scoring the first 28 points of the game and racking up nearly 700 yards of total offense, cruising to a 59-31 home opening victory over Bethune-Cookman. This was a statement considering Western Michigan was held to just 14 points through the first 2 games of their 2024 season, albeit to Big Ten opponents in Ohio State and Wisconsin. The Broncos didn't waste any time. They scored on the first play from scrimmage, a 54-yard touchdown from Hayden Wolf to Anthony Sambucci over the top of the defense. And it was really a night of career firsts for a trio of Broncos. Oklahoma State transfer running back Jaden Nixon, Sambucci, and Zahir Abdus-Salam, a senior running back, all had career nights. Nixon finished with 189 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Abdus-Salam with over 100 yards on the ground and 2 TDs. And Sambucci with his first ever 100-yard receiving game. Quarterback Hayden Wolf threw for 300 yards for just the second time in his Bronco career. And defensively, Western Michigan had 4 sacks and 12 tackles for loss. Obviously, this is a game Western Michigan was expected to win, but it's a nice step for them to kind of, take the chains off of their offense and really show what they wanted to do this season in the preseason, was talk about how they wanted to stretch the field vertically and just have more explosive plays under first-year offensive coordinator Walt Bell.
Awesome. And now in other MAC news from this past week, Central Michigan lost 30-9 to Illinois. The Chippewas open conference play this week by hosting Ball State. Big game for both teams. Ohio beat Morgan State 21-6, and the Bobcats play at Kentucky this week. Kent State had a rough one at Tennessee, lost 71-0, and now they go on the road to play Penn State this week. Ball State lost 62-0 at Miami, but let's see if the Cardinals can bounce back by starting out 1-0 in the conference play this week. The Miami Redhawks hung tough with Cincinnati, but lost 27-16, and now they travel to South Bend to take on the Fighting Irish. Buffalo beat UMass 34-3 and heads to Northern Illinois this week. Akron got its first win 31-20 over Colgate, and now the Zips head to South Carolina this week. Eastern Michigan had a big win against a Group of 5 opponent, beat Jacksonville State in overtime at home, 37-34, and the Eagles host FCS St. Francis this week. And as we all know, the headliner from this past week was Toledo winning at Mississippi State 41-17 in a game. It wasn't even that close.
Nope.
Such an impressive win. I want to talk about that a little bit before we bring Kyle Rowland on the show.
Sure.
So it's always throughout history, it's always been impressive when you have a MAC program be the Power 4 or previously Power 5 program.
Right.
But now in this day of NIL and the transfer portal, it's that much more impressive. And so just here's kind of an analogy that's been kicking around in my head. Let's say you're at a middle school, okay? And you're forming a middle school football team. And instead of a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team, you've got an A team and a B team.
Okay.
And you've got 200 kids trying out for the team. Team A is going to have 50 players on the roster. Team B is going to have 50 players on the roster.
Right.
But they're going to be 100 players that don't make either roster. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So all 200 kids show up and for tryouts, and you've got Team A has a staff of, they have so many coaches on their staff where they've got someone that can just watch the running backs, a coach that can just watch the receivers, a coach who can just watch the linebackers.
Right.
They have one coach or more for every position group to watch them all, focus on them, and select who they want for the roster. Team B has one coach. That's it. They have one coach coaching everyone, evaluating everyone, doing everything on his own. Okay. Doesn't have much help. That coach doesn't have any help at all. He's doing it all on his own. His staff is obviously undermanned. But then here's the kicker to that. Not only that, but Team A gets first pick, but they don't get just the first pick. They get the first 50 picks. Okay, so they watch all 200 players play for a week for tryouts. Then they get the first 50 picks. They pick the 50 players they want, and then before Team B ever gets to pick anybody, and then Team B has to pick its 50 among the remaining 150 players.
Yeah.
But so obviously the deck is severely stacked against Team B and for Team A. But then on top of that, then let's think about what if. So Team A forms their team, Team B forms their team, and now the teams are scrimmaging each other in practice. And let's say Team A says, "Man, how does Team B have a guy like a Sam Womack on Team B? How does Team B have a Tyson Anderson? And how do they have all these talented guys? But you know what? Let's offer them some NIL money. Let's take all the guys that we already passed over, but who Team B saw the good in them. Team B saw the potential in them. Now Team A comes in and says, we're going to take those guys from you. And so now Team B, not only did Team B was severely behind the 8 ball in terms of being undermanned, understaffed, and not even having any picks in the top 50, now they lose a lot of their best players. So for them to, obviously the deck is significantly stacked against them. For Team B to even come close in any type of competition against Team A would be impressive. What if we say for Team A, when they play, they're going to have 99% of the fans cheering for them. It's never going to be the other way around. Team B is never going to have a home field advantage in any way, a home crowd advantage in any way. That's what happened. That's what Toledo did. To do that in this NIL era, to go into Mississippi State's house and to dominate them. This game was never close. It was over early, and to do that is such an amazing testament to the undermanned staff. You look at the on-field and off-field staff at Toledo versus Mississippi State. Like the head count at Mississippi State so much higher. The resources at Mississippi State so much higher. It's not even close.
Yeah.
Yet Toledo is the one who identifies the guys. Toledo evaluating talent is a lost art in this profession. And even in this era of NIL and the transfer portal, so much can still be accomplished when you evaluate talent better than your competition does. That's what Toledo has done, not only to evaluate those guys, to believe in those guys, to develop them, and then to develop the culture where all those guys play together and believe in themselves and perform at the high level. Such an amazing accomplishment by the Toledo staff. Can't overemphasize that. That really impressive performance by not just the guys on the field, not just the coaches on staff, just that entire organization. They're really impressive outcome there.
Yeah, Todd, and I mean that's you hit it on the head basically. Jason Candle he's done such a great job at putting that his small staff, his small group of staff together to evaluate talent. But not only are they evaluating talent, And not only are they developing talent, because they may have a couple of NFL guys on there, but they're also putting them in formations and schematics that actually are winning, beating SEC teams. And that's something, if you could do the first two, but you can't do the third, then you're not going to crush Mississippi State like we just watched. And that is a testament to they have the whole package there. That is they know what they're doing. They were very informed at what Mississippi State was running. They knew exactly how to attack them. They went out, executed one of the best wins that I've seen a MAC team just go on the road in SEC territory and lay the smack down. That was impressive.
It was, and then what was almost as impressive was the post-game locker room footage when Jason Campbell, Jason Campbell was ringing the cowbell in the locker room. That's out. Love that little dig there. I know schools like Mississippi State often they're closely watching schools like Toledo and other MAC programs to try to get those top performers to transfer to Mississippi State. Yep. So then to go into their house and blow them out like that, what a message that sent for the Rockets program, but for the conference as a whole. That was amazing.
Poetic justice, because they've been trying to recruit their guys for a long time, and they just okay, you can take these guys, you take these guys, we'll come down there and beat you anyway with the guys we still have.
Of course. And then take your money. I think Mississippi State, it was reported that they paid Toledo $1.2 million to get their tail kicked.
I don't, something that's something I still don't understand, Todd, is the same thing with Memphis, with Florida State over the weekend. They were getting paid like $1.3 million to go in there and win. And I'm like, man, Memphis was in a Cotton Bowl a couple of years ago. Are we still paying FBS programs that have NIL money also to come in and play you on that? I don't understand that. FCS, I get it. FBS programs like Toledo or Memphis, man, you watch out. Watch out. You might get, you may have to pay the piper and take a loss. Yeah. And that's been, that's been kind of trending since App State did it to Michigan. So it's a real thing in this day and age where these, non P4 schools are very well equipped, very well coached. And a lot of times the NIL is really, it's leveling things out. People can get on the field and get some NIL money in places where they're not playing at other places. And that actually makes sense in a lot of guys, the opportunities that are at these other programs makes sense these days.
It does. It doesn't. And P4 programs, when you schedule one of these top MAC teams, you're in for a fight, man. You may get out of there with a win, but it's going to be a battle for 60 minutes, and you might also get smacked like Mississippi State did.
Exactly. Yeah.
So really impressive result there for the Rockets. Can't say that enough. This week so coming into the season, when we had an interview with Kyle Rowland, Toledo's beat writer, for a season preview for the Rockets, he talked about all the talent Toledo had, but he did mention that Toledo is replacing its entire offensive line and that there wasn't a single offensive lineman in Toledo's program that had ever started a college game at any school, ever, not one game.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, and that's such an important position group to have zero experience like that is natural to give you pause about how good can they be offensively this year. And so with that in mind, we gave this week the MAC Yard Brawler of the week is the entire Toledo offensive line. I'm going to name some names here. We've got Grant Zimmerly, Carter Fowdy, Ethan Spoth, Cole Rett, and Alan Jones Jr. None of those guys have ever started a college game heading into the 2024 season.
Amazing.
I'm going to say that again. None of those guys have ever started a college game heading into the 2024 season. They went on the road against an SEC school, helped the offense score 41 points, and didn't allow a single sack. That's an amazing performance by those guys. They are our MAC Yard Brawlers of the week. Congratulations, fellas.
Toledo just went in there and beat, Dak Prescott's alma mater like that. That's he's got to pony up some NIL money now.
To Toledo, baby.
Yeah, maybe.
So joining us now, like I mentioned, we've got Kyle Rowland joining us now. He is the Toledo beat writer for the Toledo Blade. Kyle, after a massive win for Toledo on the road down in Starkville against Mississippi State, not only to win the game, but to just blow them out in such a decided outcome. That was really impressive. What to you stood out about how Toledo was able to win that game so convincingly?
I mean, basically everything, just because it was, I mean, both sides of the ball, even special teams to an extent, just emphatic. I mean, the first drive of the game, I think it's always important in those situations, kind of set the tone. If you're the underdog, take the crowd out of it. You know, they've got the cowbells and everything down there, and it was loud. But Toledo, I mean, just marches right down the field, tons of chunk plays on that first possession. Also 3 penalties, and they got behind the sticks a few times, and it just did not matter. I thought the offense, Tucker Gleason, the O-line just kind of set the tone from the get-go. And then on the other side of the ball, as impressive as the offense was, and when you put up 41 points and all the yards and everything that Toledo did, the defensive line, the front 7, I thought maybe was even more impressive. I mean, Mississippi State was just never going to do anything offensively because there was so much pressure on the quarterback. They couldn't run the ball at all. Toledo had 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. It's just an all-around unbelievable performance. And I think if Mississippi State would have had Toledo's uniforms on and Toledo would have had Mississippi State's uniforms, or vice versa, if you understand what I'm saying, like people wouldn't have been surprised. They would have been, oh yeah, of course, like this is what's going to happen. Mississippi State should blow Toledo out. But I mean, it was just an absolute, woodshed 60-minute beatdown that I don't really think even Toledo probably expected. But a great performance, and now a great opportunity for Toledo. I mean, it's only 3 games into the season, a lot of football left, but they have that signature win. Even though Mississippi State's not great, they probably won't have a great record. But if you go undefeated or 12-1 with a win over Mississippi State, you certainly are going to be in that playoff conversation.
Of course, and a blowout win against Mississippi State. Exactly. So obviously, I don't think like you said, no one really expected that much of a blowout. But you did come on our show, both in our season preview show and last week, and both times you predicted on air that Toledo was going to win this game. What gave you the confidence in Toledo winning the game, and was that what you saw in this game?
Yeah, I mean, part of it was I just didn't think Mississippi State was great, but I mean, Toledo always plays well in their group of 5 games. I mean, they got blown out by Ohio State a couple years ago. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, they probably should have beat Notre Dame. They should have beat Illinois last year. They've beaten Penn State. They've beaten Arkansas. They've beaten Michigan. They've beaten Iowa State numerous times, Minnesota, Kansas. I mean, they just generally play well in these games. They've recruited incredibly well the last 6-7 years. I think Jason Candle's a very good coach. It's interesting. I think we talked about this in the season preview. I mean, when DeQuan Finn transferred, there was like mass panic from some of the fans, and nationally people thought, oh no, like Toledo's losing this great player. And DeQuan Finn was great. I mean, the stats, tell the story. But there's always been confidence in Tucker Gleason at quarterback. He's rescued them a couple times the last few years when Finn got injured. So I did not think there was a massive drop off at quarterback. And then you saw what happened Saturday. I mean, Gleason was 23 of 28. He has 0 turnovers this season. And that's one of the biggest differences between him and Finn. I mean, Finn was unbelievably dynamic, and he did great things with his legs, but he also threw a lot of interceptions. And I mean, if you don't turn the ball over, I mean, chances are you're going to win a lot of games. So I think that's been one of the big differences. And that was one of the big differences Saturday. I mean, at Illinois last year, Finn threw a pick 6 that probably cost Toledo the game. And just, I don't know, just they've got amazing leadership this year. They've got great skill players. I mean, Junior Vandeross and Juwan Newton are both, high level wide receivers. So maybe the offensive line isn't as good, but they've been able to kind of work around that. Defensive line is dominant. It's a really good team.
It is. Wow. I was going to ask, you brought up some great points, things I was going to hit on. So coming into the season, you made a really interesting observation about how Toledo not only had 0 offensive line starters returning, They didn't have a single start in the program at any level of college among their offensive linemen on this year's roster. Now, so to me, that is can be a red flag for a team in college football. And so then you not only do you then they come in and play well enough to blow out Mississippi State, and they're 3-0. Talk about how that group has gelled so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a really good job. And on Saturday, one of those guys was injured. So they moved one of the guards to center. One of the guys at guards, a redshirt freshman, and his first career start at Mississippi State, and he graded out pretty well on Pro Football Focus. Some of it is that they have played well. They've protected. There have not been a lot of sacks this year against Toledo. I think maybe only one. A few tackles for loss, but nothing horrible. And I think Jason Candle's called a good game, kind of getting the quarterback out in space, some formation things to kind of mitigate the lack of experience. Toledo, are they running the ball as well as last year when they had, a 1,400-yard rusher, Penny Boone? No, they're not, but they're running it fine. Like it's not an issue. Their ground game was far superior to Mississippi State's on Saturday. So it's not a problem.
Awesome information from Kyle there. Rockets fans, you guys are so fortunate to have someone. He works hard. He knows his stuff. He knows the history of this program backwards and forwards. He just has his pulse on the program, and like
ton of information.
So much good information, and we love having him on the show. Always a valuable resource for us. And this week we've got, as we mentioned before, Central Michigan plays Ball State in one of the first in the MAC opener for both of those squads, and then also Buffalo heads to Northern Illinois for what is our MAC Yard Brawl of the week. Huge game for both programs. Obviously, it's the conference opener. NIU's coming off the massive win in South Bend, but then they had the bye week, and Buffalo just had an impressive win, 34-3 at home over UMass. We have beat writers on both sides of this game join us. We had first up was Eddie Criffio. He's a beat writer covering NIU for the Daily Chronicle. What has, whether it's Coach Hammock or the players, what have they been saying about what they've seen out of Buffalo? Like things that they're concerned about, or the keys to the game on their end?
Yeah, Hammock, he does it a lot, and most coaches do, but it was really hammering home the respect he has for Pete Lembo at Buffalo, the first-year coach up there, special teams guru, he called him, so they're ready for something there. It seems to be a lot of respect for Coach Lembo, and he also was asked about Buffalo being ranked 10th in the preseason MAC poll, and he was like, "Yeah, we're probably too low." So I mean, obviously there's respect for the program. It seems to be coming from Hammock.
Gotcha. So going back through with even more of a fine-tooth comb, going back through the Notre Dame game, one thing that just stood out to me so much was on a macro level, the culture of this program. Like, no matter what happened in that game, they didn't flinch. They, whatever the bad calls on the field, breaks that went against them, big plays by Notre Dame, the crowd getting into it, didn't matter. Like, Northern Illinois just kept playing, kept believing, kept staying together. What do you think the key is to them having that type of culture?
I think you look at it, it's the 35 seat, whatever. I think it's 35 seniors, which is like third most, sixth most in the country. The 23 seniors that have been with the program for 4 years, which I believe that one's third most in the country, behind only Stanford and Army, and obviously they're there for reasons other than football at those two schools. Hammock has got as close to a complete and total buy-in as you could get from the players at this day and age, especially from a school that doesn't have access to the NIL stuff. I mentioned Hammock's been pounding, getting the crowd up there. He's been doing the same thing with sponsors. I think that's the next phase of what he's trying to do is to get the donors and get the sponsors to get that program up. But the original point of them rolling with the punches and everything, I mean, that's if that's indeed the culture of this team, and they proved it in a very high pressure spot, like you said, there was I didn't even realize when the game was happening that the spot on the third down and the fourth down call, just how awful the call that was. I'm trying to write 2 versions of a story at that point. So, my eyes were else, they're short, whatever. Oh, good, there's a break I can write. So I didn't realize exactly how short or how rough of a call that was. But yeah, they roll it. It's really impressive what they built. I think a lot of that is, you look at those 20 seniors that have been there for at least 4 years. A big chunk of them went through the 2020 season when they went 0-6. On top of everything, COVID and not looking like there was going to be a season, then having the season and not winning a game. They went through that, and they went through winning the MAC the next year, and they went through 3-9 after that. And the roller coaster that was self-contained last year. There's not a lot this team hasn't seen. In the 4 to 5 years these seniors have been on the roster. And they're playing with that experience and that confidence now. You saw it Saturday, and if you keep seeing it, then it's going to be a very good year for them.
Of course. So everyone, this is no secret to opposing coaches or fans or media, whoever. NIU's offense starts and finishes with the running game, right? And so you have to, if you're playing against NIU, that's got to be your key. At some point, whether it's this week, next week, against one of the tougher teams in the MAC, and at some point, someone's going to force them. Someone's going to at least limit the running game. What have you heard from the NIU players and coaches in terms of how their trust in Ethan Hampton, if and when the ball, he's kind of forced to win a game for them?
Yeah, well, it hasn't exactly been in the game-winning situation. I mean, obviously against Notre Dame, but they used Gavin Williams, but Hampton had a big run. Hampton showed a lot of stuff this year. So I've actually been incredibly impressed with how he's played. I threw for the 5 touchdowns against Western, and it's FCS school that's had their struggles, but it was still a ridiculously impressive game that he had. And then even in Notre Dame, he had a high completion percentage once again. He's got one of the top completion percentages in the country. He's taking shots downfield. And I'd be remiss to point out that Ontario Brown's touchdowns one touchdown and another big play did come through the passing game. Mm-hmm. So Hampton has looked like a little more than a game manager, even than we would have expected. This is a small sample size through 2 games, but he's looked, I think, better than a lot of people. I know he's looked a lot more impressive than I kind of thought he was going to look. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big reason this team has been again, 2 games, one of them Western Illinois, but as successful as they've been offensively is because of him.
Eddie is a treasure, man. First of all, that beard is outstanding.
We have to get some NIL money for that beard. We have to. If you're out there right now and you do nothing else, if you actually subscribe to the show, we're going to start sharing some of that money with Eddie's beard. Not Eddie, just Eddie's beard.
Just a beard.
Yeah, just his beard. That's what we're going to do.
That is legendary. Like I said, with this conference just has some really impressive beat writers, and we've got a lot of them joining us on this show, and it's been a pleasure to work with them. Again, Eddie is so dialed into this program, knows what the culture is like, knows what the players and coaches are like, knows what to expect from week to week, and really fortunate to have him on our show with us. Next up, we've got Rachel Lindsay. She covers the Buffalo Bulls for the Buffalo News, and she's going to talk to us about where things stand with the Bulls after the big win over UMass and heading into the MAC opener. So Buffalo obviously had the tough one at Mizzou, but then bounced back with a convincing win over UMass at home, and now the MAC opener this week out of NIU. What's the pulse inside the program in terms of how they feel they're playing, what their expectations are this week, and all of the above?
Obviously, UB had a very, very different schedule the first 3 weeks of the season. You open up against FCS Lafayette, a team that was really good on the run. It was a good test early on for the defense. They handled Lafayette pretty well. Lafayette's ranked in the FCS polls. Second week, you get number 9, then number 6, now number 7, Missouri, which probably has one of the best receivers in the country, one of the best pass defenses in the country, and really contained UB. I even said yesterday to Pete, I said it was kind of a weird luck of the draw. That game was scheduled in 2018. Little did we know in 2024, Missouri would be one of the top 10 teams in a college football playoff contender. So you kind of have to take the mulligan there. Last week, Pete Lembo, the UB's coach, had said, UMass is going to be a really good test for us because they're more along the lines of what we are in terms of a G5 program. Same resources, same kind of fan base, same kind of players, same kind of schedule. The UMass is going to be in the MAC as of July 1st. And against UMass, and the UB's defense dominated. We saw Marquise Cooper's 100-yard touchdown return, unofficially about 105, 106 yards. Pick six return. The defense really, really set its tone. They're probably one of the hardest working, habit-building defenses, that they believe they've had, and a veteran defense as well. UB's offense was very methodical. They were without Nick McMillan, who's out with a left knee injury again this week, which he sustained at Missouri. But you saw the receivers, how versatile and how deep they were, including J.J. Jenkins, the graduate transfer from Columbia, had a 40-yard touchdown catch, longest pass of the year for UB. So they're very methodical. Ditto for the running game as well, too. UB uses a running back by committee. It's been Jaquez Barksdale, who's kind of been the standout so far, but in the fourth quarter, Lamar Sperling, former Mr. Ohio USA Today Football Player of the Year, came out, had about 85, 86 yards, all in the fourth quarter to really help offset and lift UB, offset Marquise Cooper's pick six, and really help break that open that game. And 34-3, but it was a lot more competitive than people think because UMass has this fantastic defense, but their offense got thrown off.
Yeah. You read my mind exactly. I was going to talk about the depth and the talent in the running back room there. It's really impressive. You've got, Al-Jay Henderson, Jaquez Barksdale, then Lamar Sperling with a breakout game. Would you expect Sperling's role to continue to increase after the big late surge against UMass? Do you think his role increases moving forward?
That's been hard to say because I'm an advocate. I've covered college football for 15 years. I'm an advocate. Go with a bell cow running back. I just want to see that one guy. Maybe it's the old school fan in me as well. But I would say, God, just, take Jaquez Barksdale, go with him as long as you can, see how much you can max out about him. But one of the things that's smart about Pete Lembo and Dave Patnod's offense is that they really try to keep the pulse on the defense. What guy is really going to fit in and really take advantage of, or when a guy gets tired, who needs a spark, when another guy doesn't find the motor that he needs, who can we fit in? It's actually a pretty smart philosophy, one that I've been skeptical of, but at the same time, I'm not getting paid all this money to coach these teams. So I'm like, okay, if you put it in context to see, hey, and to keep these guys fresh, because let's be real, 12 games, maybe 13 games, maybe 14 games for some team. That's a long season. And running backs, they tire. They got to take care of their bodies. They have to take care of themselves. The team has to take care of them.
Definitely. Great point. You touched on the injury to the receiver, McMillan. Any other key injuries that you're aware of?
Jaden Oliver, he's been out with an unspecified injury, hasn't played so far this season. They really haven't given a lot of detail on him. He's a cornerback. And James McNeil, he's a local Buffalo guy. He's a true freshman. He's about 6'2", about 195 pounds. He's a very versatile guy. He was a running back at Bishop Timon St. Jude. And he could probably play anywhere on the field they put him. He hasn't played at all this season as well because of a left foot injury. But Pete Lembo said in his press conference this week, he's on track to come back soon. And they were very complimentary of his first training camp there as well. It was just kind of a fluke injury that happened with a left foot injury. So, that's another thing. Other than that, bumps and bruises so far. I guess you always talk about a team health being a big key as to what's going to help get a team through the season. And knock on wood, UB's been lucky so far. Other than Nick McMillan, with Nick McMillan out, they've really been able to exercise their depth at wide receiver, especially last week at UMass.
So looking around the MAC, obviously you had NIU and Toledo with massive wins. You had BG and Miami of Ohio with close calls against P4 opponents. Do you sense like a hunger inside the Buffalo program? You've got a first-year coaching staff. Do you sense a hunger for them to kind of make their statement and say, like, here we are now? And do you feel like this is a week that they they have the mindset that they're going to do it.
You know, I was speaking with some of the players yesterday for a story I'm working on later in this week. One of the things that's interesting is if you look at UB's defense, a lot of those players, I would say about at least 7 or 8 of them, were either freshmen or sophomores when UB went to the MAC championship game in 2020, the COVID shortened years. A lot of those guys were freshmen, redshirt freshmen, didn't have big roles on the team that year, but they saw what it took. They saw the guys like Jarrett Patterson, like Kyle Van Trees, like Malcolm Kuntz, who's now with the Raiders. They saw what these guys did to help propel. Granted, it was a shortened season, it was because of COVID. And they said, we got a taste of this. We knew what it took to build habits, to build a winning culture, to do this. That is really what has driven this defense this year. So yeah, they are thinking about this. Even Pete Lembo said, is a razor thin margin from here on out. They're up against NIU, number 23 on the country, second ranked team in 3 weeks as well. I mean, it's a feather in the max cap that we're having this game as well, too.
Awesome stuff from Rachel as well. Again, super dialed into the program.
Awesome.
Understanding, that's extra challenging too. You've got a first-year head coach so just how it takes time for the players and coaches to mesh, it also takes time for the local media and the new coaching staff to mesh. And she already has such a good pulse on that program. This is such a big game. Obviously, it's a MAC opener for both teams. You look throughout college football, not just this year, but year over year, one frequent occurrence is you'll see a team get a big win, especially if it's on the road. Then they come home the following week against what's perceived as possibly a lesser opponent, and they have a letdown. They don't play nearly as well. Maybe they eke out a close win. Maybe they lose. And so I think the timing of this game is really crucial here because NIU obviously had the massive win in South Bend, and we're going to talk about that more in a minute. But if this game had been played the last week, immediately following the big win over Notre Dame, that to me, that's a totally different animal than it is now because NIU's players and coaches, they had it because of the bye week last week. They had a chance to kind of bask in the glow of the huge win without having to sacrifice any time for preparing for the next week and without having to just have any sort of distractions. If the game had come immediately after that win, again, if this game had been last week, I'd be more concerned about how NIU will play this week, but I'm less concerned about that because of the timing. They've had time to soak the win in, but then also regroup, recalibrate, and prepare for this one. And so then you have to think if you're an NIU fan, how can you not pack that place this week, make it loud, make it vocal, make it hard to play there? I mean, your team just had arguably the best win in school history.
Absolutely.
History of its program. And now they're coming home with a very realistic chance to make a run to win the MAC championship. And
Todd, no disrespect to Toledo going in and beating Mississippi State, but the biggest win in MAC history may have been NIU over Notre Dame. I don't think any MAC team has beat a team ranked 5th in the nation by a lot of different polls, including the FWAA poll. I don't think that's ever happened before. That's in that type of testament to that school. I can see where you're saying though that it could be a letdown. It could be a letdown, but it's less likely to be now that they've gotten it out of the system and got a week of practice in also. So I understand that.
I think so. And then, fans, I know there were some NIU fans that made the trip to South Bend, but those fans, but then also the ones that weren't able to be there, man, get in that place early and often and be loud, man. Make it just a fun environment.
But now, Todd, let me ask you this though, because now my mentality would be if I'm Buffalo, there's a target on NIU's back now because now they're the man. They're walking around. We beat Notre Dame. Now now we have to beat you because you're in our conference. You have one of the biggest wins. If we can beat you, then maybe we end up winning this conference. Don't you think Buffalo comes in with that type of mindset?
Amazing point. You read my mind. So Buffalo. Okay, you have to think about this. They have a brand new coaching staff this year,
right?
And so they haven't. Too early for them to have kind of left their mark on anything yet. And Buffalo has seen Bowling Green and Miami of Ohio have narrow losses to P4 programs. They've seen what Toledo did to Mississippi State. They've seen what NIU did. But I promise you, those guys from Buffalo are thinking, man, like, what about us? We want to do something for everyone to see us. And now that NIU
Right.
had that big win, and
Oh, yeah.
NIU is nationally ranked, and it's at
Mhm.
NIU. It's the MAC opener. I would be stunned if Buffalo's players aren't thinking this is our opportunity to kind of shift the spotlight on us,
Right.
get a huge win for us as players, but also for this new coaching staff, and kind of say, like we are a force to be reckoned with this year and in the future. And so this is, I think that's good. I would expect that to be Buffalo's mindset, relishing this opportunity while the spotlight's on NIU, to steal it from NIU and shift it over to Buffalo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm thinking in the mind, the player's mind goes off like, "Oh, you're the man now. Well, now we have to beat the man, right?
Yeah.
We have to take you down in order to, kind of make this season something. They didn't have a really good outing or whatnot earlier on, and they didn't get a chance to beat their P5 opponent. But now they're playing a team that did, and this would be their opportunity to take down somebody that's already in the national spotlight and have it shift. So I think that's spot on. I think that's exactly, and I believe that's probably what the coaching staff is telling them.
Of course.
Like, hey, this is this. They just won the Super Bowl. Now you take their ring from them,
Right.
and that's kind of the you hear that stuff in the locker room all the time. So I think I think this is going to be an incredible matchup. Incredible matchup.
I think so too. I'm excited about it. I'm gonna go a little deeper on what I saw from NIU and South Bend, and then shift gears into this matchup. So some thoughts, like obviously the win speaks for itself. Okay, there was nothing fluky about it. NIU outgained the Irish by over 100 yards. You look at the character, the toughness, the physicality, the mentality of NIU's team on offense and defense. It's so impressive. The defensively have to feel good about the run defense and not giving up the big play in the passing game. The concern I have from on a macro level defensively is there isn't a consistent pass rush right now without when a blitz isn't called or a pass rush game isn't called. And so to me, that is one area where if NIU wants to do what it wants to do this year, I think that's an area of possible growth. To me, the best players defensively right now, early in the season, look like defensive tackle Devontae O'Malley. I think he's flashed some explosiveness. One guy I'm really excited about is defensive tackle Skylar Gill Howard, explosive kid with knee bend, really tough matchup inside. And then also safety Nate. I'm going to try not to butcher the last name. Nate Valcarcel.
Yeah. I think it is Valcarcel. Yeah.
Yes. Like the explosiveness there, the range there. He's a downhill guy. He can tackle, and he's got some ball skills too. And then you also look at corner Jay-Sean Prophet, like his ability to mirror on the edge out there. Offensively, you have to. So in this era, it's so hard to find tough physical guys that play offense. Okay. So much of football has turned into more of a finesse game on offense. And that's not NIU, man. Like their slogan is the hard way. That's how they play. These dudes are tough. They're like they're not like you're in for a fight for 60 minutes. So this offensive line, they come off the ball. Again, you'd think you could expect that, but that's actually kind of a rarity in this day and age of college football. But it's not just the offensive line; it's the tight ends, the fullbacks. Also, the fact that they have a fullback, the fact that they use their tight ends so much. This is a team that's fun to watch for me as a scout from a scouting standpoint. I like the way the offensive line run blocks. I think the one that stands out the most to me right now is right guard John Champ. Tight end, and with tight ends in this day and age, it's so many of them are just essentially big receivers that maybe they'll get in someone's way in the running game. Look at number 80, the tight end Jake Applegate.
Jake Applegate. Yeah.
That dude will come off the ball and he can play. Then obviously Antonio Brown is one of the best running backs in the country. And so you have that offensive line, that group of tight ends and fullbacks blocking for this type of running back. And he's such a perfect fit for their scheme. He's patient, his vision, his feet, his explosiveness, his top end speed. Ask Notre Dame about his top end speed.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
they've got some guys that can run back there. They couldn't run with him. So
It was interesting during that game. I know that there's blocking is so essential, especially against a team like Notre Dame. And I saw a whole lot of 12 personnel where there weren't a whole lot of hands on Ontario Brown. And that's the thing. Like he would run through some tackles, but he was getting through that line like butter, man. And I was like, man, what? It seemed weird, like to watch NIU's line push around, Notre Dame, and I think it caught them off guard the entire game because they didn't expect bullies to come in and bully them, and I think that's why you saw what happened to Purdue the following week. They just kind of took it out on poor old Purdue. But NIU, you're right about what they do. They have a fullback. They have two tight ends, and both of them are monsters on that line. They not only are they pass catchers, but they can block. They can block just like any of the guards. And I'm like, man, these guys are the fundamentals. I think when you see a win like that, you're like, okay, how does that happen? Thomas Hammock, the fundamentals that I saw in that game, it was like I was watching actually two, P4 schools. I was like, man, these guys they got the fundamentals down. Now it's just about execution, and they were executing way better than Notre Dame just that day. You play that game, I think with a team like that, you play that game 5 times. Notre Dame may win 3, NIU 2, but NIU won that day, and that's all that matters. And you only get a chance every year to play a team once, usually, unless you see them off in the playoffs or something like that. And NIU won that day, and I think there was more of the fundamentals that I saw in that game. There weren't a whole lot of extracurriculars. There weren't a whole lot of penalties that sometimes teams blow up down the stretch. They were also well conditioned going to the fourth quarter. This year, I've watched so many teams. They look like conditioning was an issue. Arkansas up by 21 going into the fourth quarter, lost it. There's some conditioning issues. You're like, defense looks tired. Guys are getting sluggish. The penalty flags are flying in the fourth quarter. That wasn't the case with NIU, and that's coaching. That's preparation and coaching. And Todd, that a historic win, and I'm so excited about 2 undefeated teams. NIU ranked in the top 25. This is going to be good.
It will be. It will be. And you talk about Ontario Brown. So in scouting, you'll often see running backs that have the movement skills are impressive, but maybe they're not super crafty in terms of their vision and finding what's there and exploiting it. And then, or the other way around, that you've got the crafty guy just doesn't quite have that burst you're looking for. Ontario Brown is that combination of both. And so, like you were saying, he's got that patience and vision and the feet to get to find what's open and then exploit that. And then you're in trouble at that point on defense. I think, and there was nothing mismatched about that game. There weren't any players on the field where NIU just couldn't handle them.
Right. Even in the zone blocking schemes, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You saw some zone blocking schemes out of 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends, and I was like, okay, this is basically who's better at the line. But when you started seeing it develop, you're like, man, everybody's blocked. I mean, if you're Ontario Brown and the only person you have to beat is one out of place linebacker, and you get 10 yards. Hand him that all day. He's going to win that battle, right? And that's what was so impressive about that game. I went back and watched, and I was like, oh, they were getting beat up front, and you just never see that with MAC teams and a team like Notre Dame or Northwestern, or where all these NFL offensive linemen and defensive linemen come from. They don't. They teach line up there. There's not Illinois. There's so many offensive and defensive linemen and legends that have come from schools that you don't expect to see, like NIU beating you in that category. Maybe they have a all-star wide receiver or whatnot, or maybe they have a Ontario Brown or whatnot, but they usually never have the offensive line that can just line up with some other guys that are going to the NFL and execute for 4 quarters.
Mhm.
And that's what we saw. That's what happened.
Yeah. And there's some other things that really stood out to me also. I think one big question moving forward, JJ Lippy, the left guard for NIU, went down in the second half of that game, did not return. Hopefully with the bye week, he was able to get back healthy, and we'll see. Let's see if he can play against Buffalo. I think NIU was still able to move the ball some without him, but obviously you'd like to have him if possible. I think one thing, so obviously this is Ethan Hampton, the QB. It's his first year as a starter. I think obviously the running game is the best friend for any QB, and the way NIU can run the ball at you, it really has set Ethan Hampton up for success. He's making the makeables now. There are relatively easy completions he's making, but against Notre Dame, there are also some short passes in tight windows, and he put them in. They're absolutely on the money. He was saying, you want to put between the 8 and the 7? I'm going to put between the 8 and the 7. You want wherever you want that ball, he's going to put it. And then so that his touch and accuracy on short passes in that game was really impressive at times. And then typically a good decision maker. He's tough. He's got some movements, a little bit of a movement skills to him. So impressed early there. Receiver Cam Thompson, I thought he flashed a little juice. Look to see what he can do moving forward. I think one question for them, whether it's this week or against other opponents down the road for NIU, can they consistently throw the ball when they have to? Because obviously every defense, when you play NIU, you're coming in, you're going to say, we have to stop Ontario Brown. It's possible no one's going to be able to, but at some point you think someone may have, whether it's the personnel matchup, the schematics, whatever it is, or injury issues on NIU's end, where someone might be able to do it one day. And so can Ethan Hampton consistently win with the pass, throwing the ball when he has to? That's going to be a question that may end up deciding whether or not NIU can win the MAC championship this year. And then the other question to me is defensively, they have to develop the pass rush. I think
I was going to come back to that because right out of that 4-2-5, it's sometimes it's harder to. I don't know. I mean, if you're bringing somebody to the line, who's that going to be? Is it going to be your corner, your nickel? Prophet may have to come to the line and make some stops. So, but there has to be a blitzer that you don't know where they're coming from, and I don't know who that guy is because they're out in pass coverage. They're good. They're better than average. But blitzing, it didn't seem, and maybe that was just because I only watched that one game. Maybe that was just a package for Notre Dame. Maybe they thought we don't have to blitz Notre Dame, right? We don't have to get pressure on them. They'll, maybe they saw something with the film that said, we don't have to do that to win this game. And if that was the plan, then it worked. But if it's not, and they just can't get a pass rush, that's not going to work throughout the rest of the season.
Those are some strengths and weaknesses that I've seen on both sides of the ball, both for NIU and for Buffalo. And now we are Yard Brawl Overtime subscribers who now it's their time to shine. They're going to find out how I see this game playing out. I'm going to make a prediction on the final score, how I see it playing out and why. Then also give some bets that I like this week, if you are into point spreads, prop bets, things like that.
That's all for this portion of the show. If you are a subscriber, you get to listen to the rest of this. Head over to Patreon by scanning this QR code right here and subscribe. Subscribe, become a member of the show, become part of the club, ask us questions. You'll get personalized really treatment from us at that point because you're going to be helping build the show. We'll get your questions answered. We'll go to the press conferences or get the guys on that you want to talk to, that you want to hear from. So go ahead and subscribe. If you love this show, if you love the Mac, if you love Maction, if you love what you're hearing so far, subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Thank you guys for joining us.